Take a good look at these images. They were recorded by a driver who is driving on the road that leads to the Kerch Bridge in Crimea. He is going over 100 kilometers per hour and filming out the window at a line of cars stopped on the lane next to him. He drives, and the line doesn't end. A line stretching for kilometers of Russian families in their cars trying to leave the peninsula that Putin promised would be theirs forever. But notice one detail. The lane for those leaving is jammed. The lane for those entering is empty. No, this isn't a holiday gone wrong. This is the third time we've seen this movie. And Putin, well, he has already shown twice exactly how it ends. But to understand what's happening now, you need to see what happened the first two times.
We believe that for Russia, it is mortally dangerous. In
September of 2022, Putin steps up to a podium in front of a war monument and reads a speech looking down. He says that Russia will never give in to blackmail, that it will never betray its sovereignty.
Мы не поддадимся шантажу и запугиванию. И никогда не предадим.
Months earlier, former President Dmitry Medvedev had gone even further, saying, any attack on Crimea, he said, would trigger Judgment Day. They were absolute promises, and weeks later, the first of them was broken. Ukraine advanced on Kherson, the only regional capital that Russia had captured in the war, and that apocalyptic response that Putin had promised never came. He handed over the city without a speech, without explanation, in silence. But the second time was even more revealing. In 2023, the Security Service of Ukraine showed a CNN team a weapon that no one took seriously. A naval drone called Sea Baby, carrying 850 kilograms of explosives. In the footage, you can see the exact moment when it glides through the water at night and explodes against the Kerch Bridge. And the head of the service warned the American network. That was just the beginning.
And the head of the security service told CNN, this is just the beginning. Start.
He wasn't bluffing. In February 2024, Ukrainian naval drones surrounded and sank the Caesar Kunikov, a large landing ship of the Black Sea Fleet. The drone's own thermal cameras recorded everything: the approach skimming the water, the crew trying to repel the drones, and the explosion. A country that practically had no navy was sinking Russia's warships one by one. And do you know what Putin did? He withdrew what was left of the fleet from Crimea to ports on the Russian mainland. And again, he did this without announcing it. The state television simply didn't mention the subject. 2 withdrawals. And the same method: deny, minimize, and quietly back down. Now, keep this in mind because it's what explains everything that comes next. And if you like to understand things at this depth, subscribe to the channel, because this is exactly the kind of analysis we do here every week. Now the question arises, why would a third withdrawal be different from the other 2? You probably think that having hundreds of thousands of Russians living in Crimea makes the occupation stronger. More people living there means more people putting down roots there, more control. Right? Yeah, but it's exactly the opposite, and the numbers show that. After annexing the peninsula in 2014, Putin launched a mass colonization project. He offered very low-interest home loans to those who moved there. Military personnel, judges, doctors, and teachers were transferred from Russia with their entire families. In 2021, a decree prohibited foreigners from owning land in the region, including the Ukrainians themselves who had always lived there. And do you know what the result of that was? The occupation authorities officially admit that 650,000 Russian citizens have moved to Crimea. The Ukrainian government estimates that the real number could reach 850,000. But history has exacted this price before. Crimea is a peninsula surrounded by water that has never produced enough to sustain itself. For 2,500 years, from medieval sieges to the Crimean War in the 19th century, the same pattern repeated itself. Whoever cut off the supplies of those occupying the peninsula won. And the more people the occupier moves in, the steeper the price becomes. Putin managed to quietly withdraw the fleet. But 650,000 people don't leave quietly. Ukraine understood that. And in April of 2026, it began to cut the lines, one by one. The main road connecting Russia to the peninsula got a nickname among the soldiers themselves: the Road of Death. Ukrainian drones started hunting the convoys that traveled along it, leaving burning trucks along the way. On June 21st, the maritime oil terminal in Kerch, the city that is right at the entrance to the bridge where fuel reaches the peninsula, was hit. Residents on the other side of the canal filmed the column of black smoke rising in broad daylight against a clear blue sky. On the other side of Crimea, in Sevastopol, the largest city on the peninsula, the main power substation was attacked 7 times in a single night, according to the commander of Ukraine's drone forces. And when Russia tried to supply the peninsula by sea using the tankers from its so-called Shadow Fleet, the drones went after them too. According to the Ukrainian command, 21 vessels were hit in just 72 hours. In the Sea of Azov, the thermal images released by the units themselves show ship after ship exploding in the middle of the night. Road, bridge, sea. Every route that supplied 650,000 people was cut off. And there were people who saw this coming. On June 16th, Rafat Chubarov, the leader of the Crimean Tatars, the native people of the peninsula who had lived there long before any Russians arrived, recorded a statement addressed specifically to the settlers. The message was direct. You believed in Putin, settled on stolen land, and now the peninsula has become the front line. He warned that the fuel shortage would get worse, that the collapse would happen in a chain reaction. He recorded the phrase that defines everything. Every day that the Kerch Bridge is operational is your chance to get out safely. After that, it will be too late. And 5 days later, the warning became reality. On the same day, June 21st, when the Kerch terminal was burning, Sergei Aksyonov, the head of the administration of Crimea, he appeared on television for an announcement that no one had heard before. Starting that morning, the sale of fuel to the public was suspended throughout Crimea. You can pay for everything by card. Everything. And notice the detail. He listed the payment methods one by one. Because the problem wasn't how to pay. There was nothing left to sell. The remaining gasoline was reserved for state services. On the 26th, the same Aksyonov went back on camera to declare a state of emergency throughout the region, and pay attention to the language. He talked about regulating financial and contractual relations in compensation for damages. At no time did he mention the words drone attack or Ukraine. The emergency was announced as if it were a paperwork issue. And it was on this exact day that the footage from the beginning of this video was recorded. 1,800 vehicles in line at the bridge. A line that, the day before, had reached 15 kilometers. The driver who filmed it summed up the situation saying, "There has never been a line like this." But those who couldn't get fuel to escape stayed. And that's where the most important moment of this story comes in.
Я обращаюсь к Москве и к Путину.
On July 5th, a resident of Crimea recorded a frustrated outburst inside her car, looking straight at the camera. It was a direct message to Putin. She said,
Вы обещали нам безопасность и нормальную жизнь.
"You promised us safety and a normal life. And in reality, we have empty gas stations, fear, searches, and total uncertainty. People don't know how to get to the hospital." And then she said the sentence that sums it all up.
По телевизору говорят, всё под контролем.
On television, they say that everything is under control. But if Crimea is living in survival mode, then there is no control at all anymore. And he finished with a strong question. Direct. A question that hundreds of thousands of people were asking in silence.
The Crimeans don't want news but answers. Why were we abandoned?
Why were we abandoned? She didn't know, but the answer had already been given a week before. On June 28th, 2 days after the emergency was declared, Putin gave an interview to the journalist Pavel Zarubin from state television. When asked about the fuel shortage, he said, "We are seeing a shortfall, but it is not critical." And he added, "There is damage, but all the damaged facilities are being restored quickly. It is not critical. Restored quickly." Remember these words because 10 days later, Putin's own system contradicted them right in front of him. In an official government video conference, on July 8th, the installed governor of Sevastopol reported to Putin, live, that the price of a liter of gasoline in the city had reached 197 rubles, more than double the national average. Triple the price from before the war. The man who said nothing was critical heard from the employee himself about the extent of the collapse. Now, notice what has already happened up to this point. He denied it. He said nothing was critical. He downplayed it. He announced the emergency as if it were just paperwork at a notary office. If you remember what we discussed at the start of the video, you know exactly what's missing. The silent retreat. That pattern, you know? And the signs of it have already appeared. The resistance movement operating inside the peninsula, called Atesh, claims that the administrations of 2 cities have been ordered to evacuate official documents and equipment, and that officials have already fled to Russia using fuel reserved for the state. The elite escaping first, with resources denied to the population. And the Russian economist Igor Lipsitz, now an exiled critic of the government, went even further in a recent interview. For him, the decision has already been made. Putin will not organize any humanitarian corridor because asking Ukraine for passage would be to admit defeat. He will leave the people there and then blame the Ukrainians for whatever happens to them. This is an allegation, not a confirmed fact. But notice one thing, that's exactly what happened with the fleet. That's exactly what happened in Kherson. You've already seen this movie twice, and by now you must have seen the next scene unfolding. The truth is that Putin is not going to announce the loss of Crimea. He didn't announce it before when he withdrew the fleet. He didn't announce it when he gave up Kherson either. The method is always the same. Deny, minimize, and retreat in silence. Let others pay the price. It's just that this time the price has a face. It's the 650,000 people he himself convinced to move there. Attracted by a promise that's falling apart in front of the cameras. And there's another important detail that rules out any quick way out. Even if the attacks stopped tomorrow, the crisis wouldn't end along with them. The destroyed refineries could take years to resume operations, not weeks. And the peninsula that Putin sold as an eternal paradise is now heading toward two possible fates: to become a bargaining chip at a future negotiating table, or to become the ultimate symbol that his word can't even hold on to the territory he celebrated the most. This story will still have new chapters. And you'll see every development here first, so subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. And tell me your opinion in the comments. Will Putin repeat the pattern and quietly withdraw from Crimea? Or this time, does he have no way to hide the retreat? Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.